Years passed, quietly, like soft whispers of time moving through an old garden. The city changed, new buildings rose, roads widened, and faces came and went. But the jasmine tree at the entrance of the old home still bloomed, its petals glowing under every season's sky. Lily had grown into a woman the world could admire. But her beauty no longer rested on youth. It rested on forgiveness. She spent her days helping at shelters, listening to stories of forgotten souls, and whispering hope into their silence. Every wrinkled hand she held reminded her of Eleanor's warmth. Every tear she wiped away felt like returning a debt of love. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, she sat near the jasmine tree, its fragrance wrapping around her like an old lullaby. Children played nearby, their laughter touching the golden light. And Lily smiled. A smile peaceful, unbroken whole. She closed her eyes and let her heart wander to the days when Eleanor's arms were her only world. I finally understood, Grandma, she whispered softly. Love isn't about keeping someone close. It's about carrying them, even when they're gone. The wind brushed her hair. And in that tender moment, she felt something move through the air. A warmth, familiar, eternal. It wasn't imagination. It was presence. A white jasmine petal drifted from the tree and landed in her lap. Lily looked at it and smiled through quiet tears. She knew Eleanor had heard her. That night, she walked home under the silver moon, her shadow long and steady beside her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone, because love, real love, never dies. It simply changes shape. And so, life went on. The jasmine tree grew older, its roots deeper, its fragrance stronger with every year that passed. People still came by the old home, drawn by something they couldn't name. They would stand beneath the tree, feel the air grow still, and say quietly, "There's peace here," as if someone's love still lingers. And somewhere beyond the veil of time, Eleanor's soul watched with serene eyes, her spirit resting beside Lily's. Two hearts reunited, two lives forgiven, two loves eternal. In that stillness between worlds, the scent of jasmine carried a final whisper, not of sorrow, but of a love that had fulfilled its purpose, to teach, to heal, and to remain. That night, the moon hung low over the city, pale and quiet, like a memory that refused to die. Lily couldn't sleep. The world outside was asleep, but inside her chest, the ache of 1,000 unsaid words kept her awake. She sat by the window, the same one where Eleanor used to sit with her when she was little. The locket rested against her heart, its silver surface warm from the heat of her sorrow. She whispered softly, "Grandma, if you can hear me, just once, let me tell you I'm sorry." The wind stirred. The curtain moved as if someone had passed by. The scent of jasmine filled the air, faint, gentle, eternal. And for a fleeting moment, she felt a hand, soft, trembling, loving, touch her shoulder. She turned, and there she was. Eleanor, not as a ghost, but as a warmth made of light and love. Her eyes carried the same tenderness that had once lulled Lily to sleep. "My little one," she said, her voice like the hush of dawn. "I never left you. You carried me in your heart, even when you forgot me. Forgiveness was never needed, for love never blamed." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. But this time, they weren't of guilt. They were of release. She knelt down, holding her locket close, and whispered, "I'll live as you taught me," softly, kindly, completely. Eleanor smiled, the kind of smile that only heaven keeps safe. And then, like a slow breath fading into light, she was gone, leaving behind a stillness that wasn't empty anymore. The next morning, the city woke to a golden dawn. Lily stood on the balcony, watching the first rays of sunlight touch the horizon. The world was the same, and yet everything had changed. She walked to the old home one last time, not to beg for forgiveness, but to plant a white jasmine tree by the entrance, the kind Eleanor loved. She whispered, "This is for you, Grandma. May every flower bloom like your heart did for me." Years later, when people passed by that home, they would stop by the jasmine tree, breathe its fragrance, and say, "There must have been love here once." And far away, in the gentle quiet of eternity, two souls, one wrinkled with wisdom, one softened by remorse, watched over that blooming tree together, forever bound by love that never asked for anything in return. The morning after that visit to the old home felt like a punishment, written by fate itself. Lily woke up to a silence that no amount of noise could break. The city outside was alive, cars, laughter, footsteps, but inside her apartment, time stood still. She sat by the window where the sunlight used to kiss her dreams, but now even the light looked tired of her sorrow. Her reflection in the glass stared back, a woman carrying the ghost of a little girl who once believed in forever. The walls around her whispered memories she could not silence. Her grandmother's laughter, the way Eleanor would hum old lullabies while cooking, the warmth of her wrinkled hands, and the sound of her voice, soft and trembling, saying, "Love, my dear, is not a place, it's a heart that never stops waiting." Those words became her torment. They echoed in every room she entered, in every mirror she looked at, in every breath she took. Lily tried to live again. She returned to work, smiled at strangers, pretended the world still made sense. But every act of pretending tore her apart a little more. At night, when the city lights blinked like distant stars, she would sit on the floor beside the red teddy bear. Its fur had faded, its eyes dull, but to her, it still carried Eleanor's scent. She would hold it close and whisper, "I'm sorry, Grandma. I chose love over you, and lost both." Tears would fall silently, tracing the same path over her cheeks again and again, as if grief had carved its own roads upon her face. One day, a letter arrived from the old home. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a short note, written in delicate handwriting. "Eleanor passed away peacefully last night. She often spoke your name, and said she had already forgiven you long before you came. She left this for you." A small silver locket fell from the envelope. Inside it, a faded photograph of Lily as a child, sleeping in Eleanor's lap. On the back, faint words carved in love. "If you ever forget who you are, open this. You are the piece of my heart that never grew old." Lily pressed the locket against her heart and broke down, a soundless cry that filled the room with the ache of years. She ran to the window, looked at the same sunset she had once watched as a little girl, and whispered, "Wait for me, Grandma. Just wait a little longer." And as the last light of day faded, a breeze entered the room, soft, familiar, like a wrinkled hand brushing her hair. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, and in that moment, Lily knew Eleanor had never really left. She spent the night sitting beside the photograph, talking to it, apologizing to it, as if love could still hear her through the silence of death. And when the first light of dawn touched the floor, Lily whispered, "I thought I was chasing love, but love was right here, waiting for me all along." Months passed. The city lights dazzled, the parties sparkled, and Ethan's promises echoed in Lily's ears like a beautiful lie. She had left behind everything, her memories, her home, her grandmother, for a love she believed would last forever. But forever has a strange way of ending early. Ethan grew distant. The warmth in his words began to fade, and the tenderness that once lit up his eyes turned into a cold indifference. One night, when rain fell softly against the window, Ethan didn't come home. Lily sat waiting, watching the clock tick louder than her heartbeat. When he finally returned, his shirt smelled of perfume that wasn't hers. Her world shattered quietly, completely. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood there, a silence heavier than grief wrapping around her soul. She realized that she had traded a love that nurtured her for a love that used her. Days turned into nights. and nights into endless loneliness. Her phone remained silent. No messages, no calls, not even from Eleanor. Then, one morning, while sorting through old papers, Lily found a letter, an unopened envelope in the bottom of her bag, written in her grandmother's shaky handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. Greater than, "My dearest Lily, if you ever find this, it means you've walked farther than I hoped you would. But remember this, love doesn't mean forgetting where you came from. The world may take you far away, but my prayers will always walk beside you. When life becomes heavy, come home, child. I'll be waiting even if not in this world, then in the next." Tears blurred the ink. The words felt like a heartbeat that still remembered her name. Lily dropped to her knees, sobbing for everything she had lost. Not just her grandmother, but the version of herself that believed love could never hurt. She packed her things and left that same night. Ethan didn't even ask why. Some people only love the idea of you, not your soul. When she reached her grandmother's house, it stood quiet, covered in dust and time. The garden was overgrown, the windows shut, the air filled with memories and ghosts of laughter. Inside, the smell of lavender still lingered. On the small wooden table lay Eleanor's spectacles and a half-knitted scarf, the one she was making for Lily. Lily's voice broke as she whispered, "Dottie, I'm home." But no voice answered back. Only the wind, whispering through the curtains. Her eyes fell upon a framed photo. Herself as a little girl in Eleanor's arms, both smiling beneath the golden afternoon sun. And that's when she saw the date carved on the calendar. The same day she had left home. Eleanor had passed away 2 days after. Lily fell to the ground, her cries echoing through the empty house. It was too late. Too late to say sorry. Too late to hold the hands that once never let go. She didn't ask where Lily was going. Some answers are too painful to speak aloud. Instead, she placed her trembling hand on Lily's cheek and said, "Remember, child, no love worth having ever asks you to abandon another." Lily broke down then, but Ethan's voice outside called her name again. Urgent, impatient, and so, with her heart drowning in tears, she never showed. She turned and walked away. Each step echoed through the old house like a prayer that had lost its way. As the car drove off, Eleanor stood at the window, her reflection fading into the glass. Her lips moving silently, not in anger, not in grief, but in prayer. "May life be kind to you, my child," she whispered, "even if you forget to be kind to yourself." Days turned into weeks, and weeks melted quietly into months. The rhythm of life seemed ordinary, yet beneath the calm, something sacred was about to break. Lily had met Ethan at the university, a man who spoke softly, whose eyes carried the kind of charm that promised forever. He filled her emptiness with laughter. And for the first time since her childhood, her heart learned to dream again. Eleanor watched them from afar, her wrinkled hands busy with knitting, but her eyes, oh, her eyes, they carried both joy and worry. She had lived long enough to know that love, if built on conditions, always comes wearing a mask. One evening, when the sun was sinking behind the old oaks, Ethan held Lily's hand and said words that would echo through her soul forever. "I want us to be together, Lily. But you can't live with your grandmother anymore. I can't build my life with someone who still clings to the past." The world stopped. The breeze, the light, even her breath. Everything froze in that one cruel sentence. Lily tried to laugh it off. But Ethan's expression stayed cold, determined, sharp. He wasn't joking. That night, she sat by Eleanor's bedside, watching her sleep peacefully. The old lamp casting golden shadows on the walls. Her heart was being torn between love and loyalty. How does one choose between the hands that raised you and the heart that claims to love you? Eleanor stirred in her sleep. As if sensing the storm within her granddaughter, she opened her eyes, smiled faintly, and whispered, Lily, if you ever have to choose between my love and your happiness, choose your happiness. I'll be fine." Tears rolled down Lily's face, but she hid them behind a trembling smile. She kissed Eleanor's forehead and whispered back, "You've always been my home. I just don't know if love will let me stay." The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. Eleanor noticed Lily packing a small bag, her movements shaky, hesitant, almost afraid of her own reflection. Outside, a car waited. Ethan's car. The sky was gray, heavy with unspoken sorrow. Eleanor walked to the doorway, her cane tapping softly against the wooden. Love, it came to Lily like a secret sunrise, soft and blinding all at once. Every message from Ethan, every glance, every promise. It was as if life had finally opened its arms to her. She laughed more, sang more, and dreamed more than ever before. But in that blooming joy, a quiet distance began to grow. A distance that even Eleanor's gentle eyes could feel. Eleanor would sit by the window every evening, watching Lily rush past her, cheeks glowing, eyes lost somewhere far away. She would call her once, twice. But the girl who once never left her side now lived in a world Eleanor could no longer enter. Sometimes, at dinner, the silence between them was louder than any word. Eleanor would serve her food with trembling hands, asking softly, "Did you eat at school, my dear?" And Lily, lost in her phone, would nod, her mind still wandering somewhere near Ethan's smile. The nights became longer for Eleanor. She would sit by the old lamp, knitting unfinished sweaters, her thoughts tangled with fear, the fear of being forgotten. One evening, as rain poured outside, Lily returned home late, her dress wet, her eyes red. Eleanor's heart clenched. She held her close and whispered, "My child, what happened?" But Lily didn't answer. She simply broke like a wave that had been holding its storm for too long. Between her sobs, the truth fell out. Ethan had left. No reasons, no goodbyes, just silence. And in that silence, the light inside Lily dimmed. Days passed, and the once blooming girl turned pale, her laughter fading into the same walls that had seen too much pain already. Eleanor stayed by her side, feeding her soup, wiping her tears, whispering prayers into her hair. One night, Eleanor said softly, "Lily, love is not what leaves, it's what stays. Even when the person is gone." Her words hung in the air, like the faint scent of jasmine, sweet, fragile, unforgettable. That night, as the wind brushed through the curtains, Eleanor looked at Lily, sleeping beside her, and smiled through her tears. She knew her time was near. The years had taken their toll. But she was at peace, for she had given this child all the love a heart could give. And when dawn broke, the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and sorrow. Lily woke to a silence deeper than any she had known. A silence that whispered one truth: Eleanor was gone. In her hand, still warm, Lily found a half-knitted scarf and a small note. "My dearest Lily, love doesn't die, it changes its shape and waits for you in heaven." The room was filled with the scent of old roses, and Lily wept like a child again, the red toy bear still sitting quietly on the shelf, watching another goodbye unfold. Years passed like fragile petals carried away by the wind. The house that once echoed with laughter now breathed in silence and the smell of old memories. Little Lily was no longer the child who clutched a red toy bear. She had grown into a young girl, whose eyes still carried the reflection of a loss too deep for her years. Every morning, Eleanor would sit by the porch, knitting softly while watching Lily run across the garden, her golden hair glinting under the sun, her laughter mingling with the chirping birds. To anyone passing by, they looked like the perfect picture of peace, but only the walls of that house knew how many nights had been spent in tears and whispers of prayer. Eleanor loved Lily with a devotion that words could never measure. She was the mother Lily lost, the friend she never had, and the soul that stood between her and the loneliness of the world. Sometimes, in the evenings, when the sky turned crimson, Eleanor would tell her stories, stories of angels, of heavens, of a place where pain could not follow. Lily would listen, her eyes wide and innocent, and then softly ask, "Grandma, will we meet Mom and Dad there someday?" Eleanor's lips would tremble before she whispered, "Yes, my child, one day, when the stars call our names." Time, however, is both healer and thief. It stitched Lily's wounds with the threads of youth, but quietly stole from Eleanor the strength she once had. Her steps grew slower, her eyes weaker, but her heart still beat with the same warmth for the child she had raised like her own soul. As Lily entered her teenage years, she began to dream dreams of the city, of shining lights, of a life beyond the horizon. Eleanor watched her with silent pride, and yet with a fear she couldn't name. She knew the world outside wasn't kind to hearts that loved too deeply. Sometimes, Lily would come home late, her laughter ringing with a new tone, a tone Eleanor had never heard before. Love had quietly entered her life, soft as spring rain, and yet wild as a storm. A boy named Ethan, charming, young, and full of promises, had become the center of her heart. Eleanor could see it in her eyes, the way Lily smiled without reason, the way she sat by the window, waiting for evening, the way she hummed songs under her breath. She said nothing. She had once been young too. She knew love, like rain, doesn't ask before falling. But in her prayers that night, she whispered softly, "God, keep her heart safe. Don't let her walk a road that takes her away from me." The wind outside sighed against the old wooden walls, and somewhere deep within, destiny smiled. For it knew the story had only just begun, and the hardest chapters were yet to come. The morning had risen with a silence that felt sacred, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. The faint sunlight slipped through the trembling leaves and kissed the earth with gentleness. The breeze carried the fragrance of wet soil and whispered secrets of the night to the dawn. In a small wooden house, surrounded by wildflowers and the soft hum of wind chimes, a child named Lily opened her innocent eyes, eyes that carried the light of her mother and the calm of her father. That day was like any other day, yet destiny had written a storm that none could see. Lily's parents, Michael and Grace, left home early, smiling, waving at her as she stood by the little fence, holding her red toy bear. Her grandmother, Eleanor, watched them go, her heart softly praying as she whispered, "May God keep you safe." By noon, the sun had turned harsh. The phone rang. A trembling voice from the other side broke the walls of time, a voice that shattered every sound around. There had been an accident, a road, a crash, a final breath. Eleanor dropped the phone, her hands shaking, her lips dry. Her eyes searched for Lily, who was still playing with her toys on the floor, her laughter echoing like the last melody of a dying day. That night, the house was filled with silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that screams inside your bones. Lily didn't understand much. She only knew her mother didn't come to kiss her goodnight. She asked softly, "Grandma, where's Mom? Where's Dad?" Eleanor gathered her in trembling arms, tears falling silently on the child's hair. She said nothing. She only hugged her tighter, as if holding her could bring the dead back. Days passed, seasons changed, and pain settled like dust in corners of the house. Eleanor became both mother and father to the little soul who had lost everything before even learning what loss meant. Sometimes at night, when Lily would wake crying, Eleanor would whisper lullabies with a trembling voice. "Sleep, my flower. The angels are watching you." And when the child slept, the old woman would sit by the window, her eyes lost in the stars, searching for the two souls she loved most, somewhere beyond the clouds. The village people said Eleanor's life ended that day too. Only her breath remained for Lily. And truly, that was all she lived for, that tiny heartbeat that had become her reason to exist.